Well, perfect segue into someone with a school perspective. He is the board president of the William Floyd School District to talk a little bit about the impact on schools, as well as the actions that William Floyd specifically has taken. I'd like to introduce Bob Vecchio.
Go Bob.
Good morning, thank you. To build on our last speaker, let's talk about William Floyd. $316,000 will be paid to the MTA next year for our payroll tax. We have yet to be reimbursed for $116,000 that we paid last year. We're cutting vital programs to our kids. We've cut summer school, we've cut clubs, we've cut electives in our schools, and we're facing draconian cuts this year due to the financial economic condition in our state. Our school district is a high needs, low property wealth school district. New York City students ride the MTA for free. That's a good thing for New York City students, but not at the cost of our students and their programs. It's not fair. School districts came out first and very early on to say, we will not be the ATM for the MTA, and we need to stop and repeal this tax now, not tomorrow. The William Floyd School District, a little over a year ago, took a formal action. We're the first, and to my knowledge, the only school district that has sued the state of New York and the MTA, because this tax is indeed unconstitutional with the way they passed it. And for school districts, it's unconstitutional because it's an interest-free loan to the MTA and the state of New York, which is unconstitutional to impose on a school district. And we're still continuing that fight, and we're going to see that lawsuit through to victory. I support Senator Zeldin, Assemblyman Murray, and Assemblyman McGrath's efforts to repeal this MTA tax. It is killing our schools, it is killing our tax-paying residents, and more importantly, as pointed out, it is killing the programs that we afford our children here on Long Island. If the students in New York City could ride the subways and the buses for free, our kids deserve their programs back, not to subsidize the MTA. So thank you very much.
Speaking on behalf of the perspective of churches, of non-for-profits, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Canal Burbank.
Thank you, Lee. I have a unique perspective. I am an attorney, so I have serious problems with the MTA tax. There's something called taxation without representation. I think this country was founded upon, and many of the people here who are can't hear?
Louder.
Many of the people here who are Tea Party people, I think Tea Party people formulate many of the foundations of our country, know what the Tea Party was based upon. It was based upon taxation to people who were getting absolutely no benefit from what they were being taxed for. And initially, I think we have to remember that that's the real problem with this. The real problem is when you're taxed for something that you yourself have absolutely no benefit for, there is a serious, serious problem. And when many of us saw that, we probably was shocked that we think, in this day and age, with transparency apparently of media and transparency allegedly of government, that something like that could get by. And unfortunately, you can see what happens when you sit back and you don't elect the people who really stand for the American principles. I've had the privilege of serving on several boards as a trustee for religious corporations, for my church, and also for many, for different nonprofit organizations. And there's a very unique perspective from these organizations. I'll give you an example first from my church, which happens to be located in Setauket, New York. And as a trustee, when I actually found out that we had to pay a tax for absolutely no benefit, there is not one member, I guarantee you, that came to our church, or one person who came to our church, that actually rode the MTA, rode the Long Island Railroad up to the North Shore. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating to think that someone could allow that to happen. And I can tell you that the not-for-profits and the religious corporations, those organizations that are actually stepping up and helping people at this time of need, they take every dollar that they get, and we make sure that every dollar gets 100 pennies worth of service. And when we don't do that, guess what happens? We have to close the doors. That's the difference between the way we operate with not-for-profits and the way the government is funding the MTA. It's not fair. It should never happen. One of the things that I would urge everybody here to do is to encourage people. Instead of spending money in places where the money just disappears and it goes puff, go to those not-for-profits and say, you know what? I know you're going to spend the money right. I've served on not-for-profits and I've never earned a dime, but what I actually receive back in terms of what it does to help our community is far greater than any salary that I could take. So what I'd suggest to everybody here is recognize the fact that the not-for-profits are really the lifeblood of our communities. The not-for-profits are the organizations that are spending your money wisely. And I'll give you the biggest absurdity, and I'll end with this. What occurs now, because governments have had to reduce down in terms of expenditures, because they're again not sometimes spending money wisely. Some of our governments are doing well. We have great elected officials up here. I can tell you that I would take the money out of my pocket, hand it to them and say, you folks do whatever you think is most appropriate. And I know they wouldn't spend a dime that shouldn't be spent. But I think what's really important in the process here is to hold your government accountable. The example I wanted to give was that one of the organizations that I work with, which is feeding thousands of people here a week in Suffolk County, thousands. And if I told you what their budget was, the gentleman who came up here and was talking about the Long Island Railroad and how they're just wasting money and throwing it away, if I told you what their budget was and what they're feeding people for, you would say it's impossible. It's not possible, but it is possible. See, it's possible when you treat that dime like it's a dime coming out of your own pocket. And one of the examples that I had recently for the person that runs this program, he said, this is the outrageous part of it. We can't get money from people on the street because basically what we're down to is people just don't have it. Why? Because the government is taking it, such as the MTA, taking it out of their pockets so they don't have extra money to give. And guess what happens? The same government officials, some of them who have supported some of these outrageous taxes, are the very ones that tell these people to call us up to help the very people that they can't now help. It sounds absurd, it sounds crazy, but that's what's happening. I want to thank everybody here. These elected officials that are behind us are incredibly hardworking, great people. I know them from different walks of life, and I can tell you that I am blessed to call them my friends and my elected officials. Thank you.
Our final speaker, last but definitely not least, he is our host. We're here standing at Pride Products, a Long Island-based company hiring Long Island employees, and so often we're seeing so much of our jobs, our tax dollars make its way out of our state and sometimes out of our country. And David, I know that times are tough. It's hard to be a business owner right now on Long Island. You have the highest energy costs in the entire country. You have the highest insurance costs, the highest property taxes, the highest overhead. You have the highest corporate and individual marginal income tax rates in the entire country, and you have the MTA tax. Thank you for letting us be here, and please come up and address the crowd. David M. Roddick.
Senator Zeldin, other public officials, elected or unelected, I want to welcome you to our home. My wife and I will welcome every one of you, and it's really an honor for someone who wasn't born in this country, who I came here 42 years ago as a student, and I feel 20 feet tall to have people that they think like me. I love you guys because you are helping us to get this country stronger and stronger. But one thing I know, I'm not a politician, but I'm a small businessman. And I know how business works. I have visited over 75 countries. I have seen different businesses, I've seen factories, I've seen offices, I've seen service industry. But one thing I know, we run the best business in the world. America is the strongest country with better business, better understanding of business, and we teach the world how to run business. But unfortunately, the bases are shaking. This country was founded on a small business. When George Washington took office, started this country, our father, the small business helped him to get where he was, and he grew and grew and grew and grew. But unfortunately, this small business is being attacked by politicians who want to tax and spend. It's very, very simple. If you increase the taxes for businesses, they will not survive. Just look around. This company started as a small one-car garage in Plainview, New York, at her mother's home. I never forget that. From that, we grew to 2,000 feet, 5,000 feet, 15,000 feet, and so on and so on. But unfortunately, for the past 4 years, we are shrinking. You know, it's not an honor for me to tell you that this company is getting smaller and smaller. The reason is because of the expenses, taxes, and all that is helping to a small business to vanish. If we do not stop this increase in taxes, no matter if it is for MTA or any other unreasonable tax, we will not survive. It's very simple. In many countries that they compete with us, especially China and India, I have to share something with you which is really truth, and you can check it on internet, read it, ask anyone you want. In China, their growth are 10% a year for past 10 years. You know what they did this year to bring it down to 7-8%? They're raising taxes. They're raising taxes in China on government and non-government companies, so their growth will slow down. There is nothing more I can tell you how it will affect business. Chinese say, if you want to enjoy life, eat eggs, but keep the chicken.
Exactly.
If you eat the chicken, there won't be any eggs. Unfortunately, with the taxes that we pay and other expenses that directly affect our business, I feel like eating soup with a fork. You know, you keep eating, but there's nothing there. So let's help the officials that are here. I want to thank you for choosing this site. You have a lot of friends, a lot of businesses support you, but it's an honor that you came to our home. Welcome. I wish you all the best and luck, and I support you as long as you're Republican.
Thank you, David. Thank you to Selectman Murray, Selectman McGrath, for all of our speakers. Listen, we're not here to feel good about ourselves. We're actually here to address a real important concern and get to work. And I'm heading up to Albany in a couple hours, and Selectman McGrath and Selectman Murray are doing the same thing. There's a lot of work ahead. And you often, when you're at events, you hear hold the applause until the end. Well, we don't deserve any applause or a pat on the back until we get this done. But just know, as we look each and every one of you in the eye, you have our commitment that we will do absolutely everything in our power to try to get this MTA tax repealed, hopefully with all of your help, and for many more that you can recruit to our efforts. So thank you.